Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are continuing our fifth class of sixth session by Dr. Vidya CS, Department of Anatomy, JSS Medical College, Mysuru. Before the session starts, I call Ms. Ritika Kapoor to deliver the prayer.
ॐ नमामि धन्वन्त्रि आदिदेवं सुरासुरे वन्दितं पादपादनं लोके जरारुके भय मृत्युनाशं दधारिषं विविध औषधीनां धन्वन्त्रि प्रमानाथं सर्वरोगे निवारकम् आयुर्वेद प्रवक्तारं वन्दे पीयूषं धायकम् सर्वे जना सुखिनो भवन्तु सर्वे सन्तु निरामया ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ
Thank you, Ms. Ritika. Ma'am, the platform is all yours. You can continue.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Anup and Ritika, for your prayers from first day to the last day. So this is the last session of neuroanatomy. So today I'll be taking about the white matter and spinal cord. So white matter, as I told you in the first class, central nervous system has been organized into two ways. There is a white matter and gray matter. So white matter are the nerve fibers, and gray matter is nothing but nuclei. And this is a spinal cord. So coming to the types, various types of white matter, they are mainly classified as association fibers, projection fibers, and commissural fibers. So this association fibers connects the cortical areas of same hemispheres. That is the corpus callosum, the right and left hemisphere. It mainly coordinates the right and left hemisphere in the cerebral cortex. Then you have the projection fibers, they connect the cerebral cortex to the brainstem, like internal capsule and others. The commissural fibers connect two hemispheres. This is the corpus callosum, the two hemispheres, and the association fibers are the cortical areas of same hemisphere. That is the long association fibers and short association fibers, they belong to the association fibers. So this is the image showing the different types of the white matter. So this is association fibers.
You on in your other video.
And this is the commissural fibers. It connects to the opposite hemisphere. So this association fiber, the examples are cingulum, lanceolate fibers, superior longitudinal, inferior longitudinal, and fronto-occipital fasciculus. So these are the important association fibers which connect the same hemispheres of different areas of same hemisphere. The projection fibers are the fimbriae and fornis, neocortex, the corona radiata, and internal capsule. So internal capsule is very important, which transmits the motor and sensory pathways. So corona radiata is nothing but from the neocortex of the fibers. They are intersected in the corpus callosum, and it continues with the internal capsule. So this is a section of internal capsule. This has got anteolimb, genu, posterior limb, and the subband retrolentiform part. So through this, the motor and sensory pathways pass through it. So this is the image showing the internal capsule, which forms the important projection fibers. So relations of internal capsule. So medially you have the end of caudate nucleus and thalamus, and laterally you find this lentiform nucleus. So this is the thalamus here, and this is the lentiform nucleus. So this is the internal capsule having the antelimb, genu, posterior limb, retrolentiform part, and sublentiform part. Again, these are the parts. So these are the this is a cut section where the ectoatrial foramen can make out the intercapsule with medial thalamus and laterally anteolimb, genu, posterior limb of internal capsule. So this is a CT and MRI image. So arrangement for fibers in the internal capsule. Mainly you find important fibers are the antithalamic radiation, then pontine fibers, then pyramidal tract. Again, the pyramidal tract, different areas from the cerebral cortex are seen. And in the sublentiform, you find the acoustic radiation, and retrolentiform part, you find the optic radiation. So these are the arrangement of fibers in the internal capsule. So this is a summary of the connections in the internal capsule. So in the antelimb, you find the frontopontine fibers, motor fibers, and sensory is antithalamic radiation. Then genu, you find the frontopontine fibers along with the corticonuclear and corticospinal fibers. And sensory are the superior thalamic radiation. Posterior limb, you find the corticospinal are the main pyramidal tract of the lower, from the lower limb upper trunk. And then sensory are the superior thalamic radiation. The retrolentiform part, they are the paretopontine and occipitopontine fibers. In sensory fibers are posterior radiation and optic radiation. Sublentiform part, paretopontine and temporopontine fibers, inferior thalamic radiation, auditory radiation. So coming to the blood supply. So blood supply mainly it is being supplied by branches from the antecerebral artery and medial cerebral artery. So they are the antechoradal artery and posterior cerebral artery. So these are the blood supply to each part of the internal capsule. So applied aspect of internal capsule. So damage in the internal capsule due to hemorrhage or infarction leads to loss of sensation and spastic paralysis to the opposite side of the body because it has already crossed at the level of pyramid. So it is called as contralateral hemiplegia. So the hemorrhage, like rupture of artery of cerebral hemorrhage, Charcot's artery supplies the posterior limb of internal capsule, and this leads to hemiplegia. Now coming to the commercial fibers. As I told you, commercial fibers, they connect to the opposite hemisphere, right and left hemisphere. So the mainly corpus callosum is the most important one. Then you know the antecommissure, then posterior commissure, and hippocampal commissure. These are the important commercial fibers. So antecommissure stretches across the midline in the substance of lamina terminalis and lies in front of fornix in anterior wall of third ventricle. So this is the situation of anterior commissure just in front of interventricular foramen. Posterior commissure crosses the midline to inferior lamina stalk of pineal gland and mainly connects the parts of the midbrain. In abenulnar commissure crosses the midline to superior lamina stalk of pineal gland and connects the abenulnar nuclei of two sides. So this is a image showing the corpus callosum, the green color, and this is anterior commissure and this is a posterior commissure. And this is the hippocampus, which is involved in the mainly the part of the limbic system. And this is the MRI image. We can make out the corpus callosum, and this is the anterior horn of lateral ventricle. So in detail about corpus callosum, is the largest band of convolutional fibers. It connects mainly the cerebral cortex. So this is the corpus callosum. Again, the corpus callosum has been divided into mainly rostrum, then you have the genome, then the trunk, then this is a splenium part. So these are the parts of corpus callosum. So coming to relations, as we studied about the lateral ventricle, major parts they form the roof of the lateral ventricle, and medially there's a connective tissue that demarcates the two lateral ventricle with the septum pellucidum. So it's the coronal section. This is a corpus callosum connecting the two hemisphere, and this is a central part of lateral ventricle. So what are the fibers? So rostrum mainly connect to the orbital surface, geno connect to the frontal lobe, as well as trunk mainly connects the roof and lateral wall of the lateral in the front temporal lobe and parietal lobe, and splenium mainly connects the posterior lobe, or what you call as occipital lobe, except the visual area. So these are the connection of corpus callosum. So what are the function of corpus callosum? The transfer of learning process, then speech function, and there's a coordination with the two hemispheres is done by corpus callosum. So if it is absent, corpus callosum is absent congenitally, it's called a split brain syndrome, and leads to mutism or the deformity in the units. Now coming to the spinal cord, very important. So till now you have studied about the brain and its parts like forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain parts, along with the blood supply, then white matter and part of gray matter, along with the cerebellum. All these things you have studied till now. So today we will be studying about spinal cord. So spinal cord is situated at the extent from the foramen magnum till the sacral vertebrae. So it's about 45 centimeter in length, and it has got cervical part, in thoracic part, lumbar part, and sacral part. And again, this spinal cord is covered or protected by three meninges, what we call as dura mater, arachnoid mater, and pia mater. So, mainly it is about 45 centimeter in length, and it is about enlargement, cervical enlargement, the C4 to T1, lumbar enlargement, along the T9 and T12. Then the tapering end is called as conus medullaris because it's like a cone-like structure. And as I told you, the pia mater extends downwards. It's called as phylum terminally. And the nerves which emerge out below L1 is called as cauda equina because it resembles like a ostrich. So spinal cord itself ends at L1 to L2 vertebra. In case of children it is L1, and in the adults it is L2 and L3. So the lower nerves dangle down the cauda equina, and there are mainly 31 pairs of spinal nerves. 31 pairs of spinal nerves. So C1 to C7 spinal nerves project above this cervical vertebra, and T1 to S5 spinal nerves project below the thoracic vertebra. This is a cross-sectional anatomy of spinal cord. So this is one of the cervical vertebra you can make out. So because the presence of foramen transversarum. So, again this spinal cord is having H-shaped gray matter and surrounding it white matter. Then you have the dorsal root and ventral root emerging out, and dorsal root has got dorsal root ganglion, and then it divides into dorsal ramen and ventral ramen. So regions in the gray matter is edge-shaped, again is divided to gray commissure, and you have the central canal, which is nothing but continuation of fourth ventricle, an anterior horn, posterior horn, lateral horns. So this is the gray matter spinal roots. So this is the coverings here. So you have the posterior median sulcus, anterior fissure, then there is the posterior funiculus, anterior funiculus or anterior part of the white matter, the lateral funiculus. And here you can see the spinal arteries, anterior spinal artery, posterior spinal artery along with the veins. This is the spinal, each spinal segment, spinal nerves emerging out of the dura mater. So gray matter organization, dorsal root, dorsal half is sensory roots and ganglia, ventral half is the motor roots. So dorsal and ventral roots fuse laterally to form spinal nerves. Then you have the four zones, what you call as somatic sensory, visual sensory, as that we also see in the brainstem. This is a gray matter organization. So in a posterior horn, you find this somatic sensory and visual sensory. Somatic means body, viscera means the organs. Likewise, we have the visceral motor and somatic motor from the anterior horn. So anterior horn mainly concerned with the motor, posterior horn mainly concerned with the sensory. Now coming to the spinal nerves. So as I told you before, 31 pairs of spinal nerves arise from spinal cord, and they named according to their point of issue. So they are mainly 8 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, 1 coccygeal. So cervical is from C1 to C8. 12 thoracic is T1 to T12. Then 5 number L1 to L5. 5 sacral is S1 to S5 and 1 coccygeal. Sometimes the coccygeal may be absent also. So this is spinal nerves. This is cervical spinal nerves, thoracic spinal nerves, lumbar nerves, sacral nerves and coccygeal. So some of the nerves, they form enlargement. So it will be cervical enlargement, cervicothoracic enlargement for the brachial plexus, and also there is the lumbosacral enlargement for the lumbosacral plexus. So what is spinal nerve roots? So each spinal nerve connects to the spinal cord via 2 roots. That's a dorsal and ventral root. So ventral root arises from the anterior horn and contain motor fibers, and dorsal root arises from sensory neurons and dorsal root ganglion and contains sensory fibers. So this is a spinal nerve roots. So this is a dorsal horn and ventral horn, forming the motor and ventral root. As I told you, there is dorsal root ganglion in the sensory, and it is also communicated to the sympathetic ganglion, which passes from the neck to the sacral region. Now coming to the nerve plexus. So nerve plexus, they are nothing but ventral rami except T2 to T12 forming internalizing nerve networks. It's called as nerve plexus. Mainly the important one are cervical, brachial, lumbar and sacral regions. You find the nerve plexus. So the fibers travel to the periphery via several different routes. In each muscle receives a nerve supply from more than one spinal nerve, and damage to this one spinal segment cannot completely paralyze a muscle because of there will be alternate supply to the plexus. Coming to spinal nerve innervation, the back, which is mainly innervated by dorsal rami, and thorax is innervated by the ventral rami of T1 to T12 as intercostal nerves. And intercostal nerves also supply the muscles of ribs, that is the external intercostal muscle, internal intercostal muscle, as well as the abdominal wall. So this is a image showing the typical spinal nerve. So the dorsal ventral root may emerge out, may form the rami, and gives out cutaneous branches and the muscular branches, and they pass between the two muscles and supply the area of the concerned skin region. So coming to cervical plexus. The cervical plexus formed by vector diagram of C1 to C4 that you studied in the head and neck, present in the posterior triangle of neck. In most branches are cutaneous nerves to the ear, neck, ear, back of the head and shoulders. The most important nerve of this plexus is the phrenic nerve. Phrenic nerve which supplies the diaphragm. So this is the cervical plexus formed by C1 to C5. Now very important is the brachial plexus which forms the nerve innervation of entire upper limb. So it is from the C5 to C8 and sometimes T1 also. It gives nerves to the and innervate the entire limb. So it has got roots, trunks, divisions and cords that you already studied when you are studying the upper limb. So this is the image of brachial plexus. So you find this C4, C5, C6, C7, C8 and T1 roots. And these interforming upper, middle and lower trunk. And these are the branches coming from the roots, trunks and divisions. So mainly from the lateral cord is lateral pectoral nerve, then medial pectoral nerve as well as the musculocutaneous nerve, and from the medial cord is the medial pectoral, then you have the medial cutaneous arm, medial cutaneous nerves of forearm. Then from the posterior division, mainly the radial nerve, axillary nerve, upper and lower subscapular nerve, all these are coming from the posterior cord. So these are the nerves and innervation of the muscle that you studied in the first part, that is upper limb. So this is a radial nerve going enter till the tip of the fingers, the muscular cutaneous nerve, then ulnar nerve. Now coming to the lumbar plexus, also called as lumbosacral plexus because of contribution of symptom S1 and others from L1 to L4, mainly innervates the thigh, abdominal wall and related muscles. The major nerves are the femoral and obturator nerve. So lumbar plexus, this is a lumbar plexus branches. So iliohypogastric nerve, then you have the ilioinguinal nerve. Then important nerve which is going down, that is the femoral nerve. Femoral nerve. Then the medial side of the thigh is supplied by obturator nerve, and the cutaneous nerve is a saphenous nerve. So these are the nerves coming from the lumbar plexus. Then coming to the sacral plexus. Sacral plexus arises from the L4 to S4 nerves, innervating the buttock, lower limb, pelvic structures. The major nerve is the sciatic nerve, the longest and thickest nerve of the body. So this is sacral plexus, and these are the nerves. So mainly they are superior gluteal nerve, inferior gluteal nerve supplying the gluteal region. You have the posterior cutaneous nerve thigh, the tibial nerve to the leg and its branches. So what is this dermatome? So dermatome is the area of skin innervated by the cutaneous branches of single spinal nerve. So all spinal nerves except C1 participate in dermatomes. So this is the area of the dermatomes you have seen in the images like in the thoracic book or any other book. So like starting from C2 to S1, all these dermatomes. The area is particular area of skin is supplied by the spinal nerve. Coming to white matter in the spinal cord, it's nothing but unmelted nerve fibers present there, and they divide into columns or folliculi. Folliculi also called as fasciculus, nothing but bundle. So they would divide into three columns: posterior, lateral, and anterior. So this is the image showing the organization of white matter. So you have the facilis cuneatus in the dorsal column, and mainly anterior spinocerebellar tract and antispinothalamic tract in anterior region. So this is the tracts that you already studied in physiology. So this is a sensory and here will be the motor. So what are the ascending tracts? Mainly anterior spinothalamic tract, lateral spinothalamic tract. They mainly carry touch and pressure to the thalamus, as well as lateral carries pain and temperature to the thalamus. In fasciculus, gracilis, and cuneatus, they mainly carry all the sensation from the upper limb and lower limb. Then posterior spinal cerebellar and anterior spinal cerebellar, they carry proprioceptive sensation to the cerebellum, then to the cerebral cortex. So non-specific gastric pathway, they are lateral spinothalamic tract. So they're coming from the each part of the area of the region. Then they go to the medulla oblongata, then to the pons and the right to the cerebellum as well as then to the midbrain, then thalamus, then cerebral cortex. So descending are mainly motor. So very important one is pyramidal tract. So again pyramidal tract can be classified as anterior um, corticospinal tract and lateral corticospinal tract. So this is a lateral corticospinal tract and here find the anterior corticospinal tract. So pyramidal motor system, direct pathways originate with the pyramidal neurons in the precentral gyri. Impulses are sent to the corticospinal tracts and synapse in the anterior, and stimulation of anterior neurons mainly carries motor activity which supplies the skeletal muscle. So this is a pathway for the pyramidal tract from the upper motor neurons in the primary motor area, the stage number 4 and 6. It travels to the internal capsule, then to the thalamus, then to the cerebrum, then to the brainstem, midbrain, then pons, and in the middle oblongata it crosses majority and forming the lateral corticospinal tract and then relaying into the motor neurons in the spinal cord. From the motor neurons, it is through the motor ventral horn, it is going to the skeletal muscle. So this is the entire pathway for the motor system or the pyramidal tract. So pyramidal motor system, we have what we call as rubrospinal, vestibulospinal, reticulospinal and tectospinal tracts. So what happens if these pathways are hampered or to the spinal cord damage? It may be damaged due to the hampering in the blood supply, ischemia, like anterior posterior spinal arteries are the one supplying the spinal cord. So the paralysis may be loss of motor function, flaccid paralysis due to lower motor neurons. Then there's no voluntary and involuntary control of muscles. Near the spastic paralysis, the upper motor neurons are paralyzed and there's no voluntary control of muscles. Coming to transection of the spinal cord mainly causes paraplegia. That is the loss of motor activity of all the four limbs, up to upper limbs and the lower limbs, it's called quadriplegia. In the heard of poliomyelitis, this is due to destruction of anterior horn motor neurons by poliovirus. Other symptoms along with it is a fever, headache, muscle pain, and loss of somatic reflexes. Now it is vaccines are available, and there is a pulse polio program, widely well-known program all over India, and it is preventable. Thank you. So this is about the white matter and spinal cord for today's session.
Thank you, ma'am. If anyone have any doubt, kindly ask. Can you repeat the different types of the fibers or white matter in?
So types are three types. There are association fibers, projection fibers, comminution fibers. So association fibers, they connect the cortical areas of same hemisphere. Projection fibers connect to the cerebral cortex to the brainstem or any other nuclei. Comminution fibers connects the two hemispheres, right and left hemisphere. These are the three types. And again, association fibers, you have what you call as cingulum, uncinate process, uncinate fasciculus, then supralongitudinal, infralongitudinal. All these come under association fibers. So projection fibers mainly they are internal capsule and corona radiata. So internal capsule is mainly contributing to the pathways for the motor and sensory tract. And this is a comminution fibers. So important one is the corpus callosum, then the anticomminution, then posterior comminution in the behind and hippocampal comminution. So these are the different types of white matter, the fibers.
Ma'am, can you explain Coda equina once more?
See the length of spinal cord is about 45 centimeter, but the spinal cord ends at L1, but still the nerves are coming out, isn't it? Till the it ends up to the sacral vertebra. So those spinal nerves which emerge out from the lower end of spinal cord, it resembles an horse tail and it is called as cauda equina. And the tip of spinal cord is called as conus medullaris.
Ma'am, what is the significance of spinal enlargement at cervical and lumbar, which you told?
They form the plexus. They form the plexus like brachial plexus, cervical plexus, lumbosacral plexus. This way there will be enlargement due to presence of the bulging uh, ventral horn, of gray matter.
Ma'am, arterial supply of spinal cord.
Yeah, arterial supply of spinal cord, as I told you, it is anterior and posterior spinal artery. They're coming from the vertebral arteries. They form an anastomosis surrounding the spinal cord and give radicular branches. And the corresponding veins, anterior and posterior spinal veins, they drain to the blood supply, venous drainage.
Any other doubts? And can you repeat blood supply of internal capsule once more?
So blood supply of Indian capsule is very very important because it has got mainly the anterior limb, genu, posterior limb, the retrolentiform part and sublentiform part. So each of these parts are supplied by the anterior cerebral artery, middle cerebral artery, which are nothing but the main branches are coming from internal carotid artery. So you can see this anterior cerebral artery giving branches to the anterior limb, then middle cerebral artery giving branches to the genu as well as the part of anterior limb. Then to the posterior limb is supplied by middle cerebral and anterior choroidal artery. Anterior choroidal artery again branch coming from the internal carotid artery. Sublentiform part is supplied by the posterior cerebral and anterior choroidal artery, and retrolentiform form part supplied by posterior cerebral artery. If there is any block or the thrombosis of each of these arteries, the fibers present here in that part that will be anchored. Mainly the pyramidal tract pass through these three parts of the intercapsule. So there may be the hemiplegia occurring.
And can you explain sacral plexus once more?
So actually it is called as lumbosacral plexus from L1 to S1 spinal nerves. So they supply entire lower limb along with some of the fibers going to the perineal region. So the main branches of this plexus are ilioepigastric nerve, then ilioinguinal nerve, and you can record this femoral nerve emerging out. This femoral nerve is the one which gives many branches to the lower limb. Then to the medial part of the thigh is supplied by obturator nerve, and the saphenous nerve will go to the tip of great toe, which forms a cutaneous innervation. So this is a lumbosacral plexus formed by ventral lamina L1 to S1.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope there are no further doubts. Now I'd like Dr. Harsha Ennam, Principal Shiva Ayurvedic Medical College and Hospital, to speak a few words.
Good afternoon, all. Okay. Good afternoon, all. I must thank Dr. Vidya CS for this extensive session of on neuroanatomy. Yes. Pardon me if I don't pronounce the terms correctly. Yeah. And when we first approached Dr. Vidya for session of lectures like this, and she was quite happy and readily she accepted, and we are beholden to this gratitude, madam. And in future also, if when need comes, we would be happy to get associated with you, and we'd be happy to receive some more classes for our students. And this point of time, I must tell one thing that of late the attendance in the classes have been quite low, and we did not because already almost half of have writing the reason. So that is the reason why. Yeah, that's the only recordings what we have done, and those are also there, and they can make use of that. And I wholeheartedly thank Dr. Professor of Anatomy at JSS Medical College, Mysore, for having spent her valuable time, for having given us valuable time for us and for our students. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Asha and Dr. Anup, for this opportunity. I hope all my sessions were fruitful for the students, and even the study materials as well as the YouTube link, which I have prepared for my own students, and few of them have given feedback. I request all the students as well as faculty to give the feedback, and thank you very much for this.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for giving your time. Uh, Department of Anatomy and college are privileged, and we are very thankful for your 1 week of time. The session was really fruitful for our students. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Can I end this meeting? Can you leave the meeting?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Dr. Asha. Thank you.
Hello, yes, ma'am.